Okay, so yeah, how I did it. I guess I got to tell a little bit of a backstory because I told you about the TV network that got funded. I walked away from. Well, right before that, I had thrown a comedy. I was working for Women's League, and the house was empty the whole time. All the kids were home. It was during COVID. School was out. School was closed. And it looked like everything was going to be closed for like another 2 or 3 years, literally, like it seemed that way at least, So I ended up like thinking like, okay, the world's coming to an end. My fiance at the time was stuck in Russia. She was supposed to come out and Putin shut down the airports. And I was just like, fuck. And I couldn't get out of there. I couldn't get out of the country myself because of COVID myself. And, I couldn't get a visa at the time. And I was just like mad stressed. So I was just like, well, the world's coming to an end. I might as well build a studio, throw a comedy show, and do mad shows there. So it had a huge kitchen in this house. It's like an 8-bedroom house in Manhattan, right beside the yeshiva. And me and Peter Ortez actually, which is a great, incredible guy that works in film in New York, an incredible screenwriter, brilliant guy, very, very dear friend, very, very dear friend of mine. Holter hooked us up, man. Shouts out to Holter, bro. What's going on? So Holter introduced me to him when I said, I'm trying to maybe build a studio and thing. So we came and we painted and built a stage and everything. And Artie Fuqua, one of the headlining opening acts and closer for a number of years at the Comedy Cellar, came through and headlined, and then we had Will Sinise and Amir Amaria, I think it's her name, and then Jonas Barnes hosted, and it was an incredible show. It was such an incredible show that all the other networks started sweating this because we uploaded it because it was fly junk. And they actually ended up deleting that account. It shows you how powerful some of these networks are. But everybody was trying to figure out where this studio was. How was this dude shooting it? It was so clear. We had the big Sony cameras, 3 big Sony joints, like getting cross angles and everything. So it looked like it was a huge club, but it was actually a small kitchen, Shouts out to Jonas, man. Like Jonas really made that happen. Like Jonas gave me the option of getting Artie Fuqua or freaking Andrew Schultz or these other huge comedians, man, that I was cool with Artie, but I wasn't that cool with him where I could just get him to come do a show at my house and trust me with such a thing, he's a great guy. Not say he wouldn't do it for anybody else, but of course, anybody's gonna do anything for Jonas Barnes, he's just a great guy. So that hit. And it hit so much that about a week later, once I uploaded the footage and had it edited and all this kind of stuff and put it up, like the networks were complaining and trying to figure out where I was and where I was operating. And then when they figured out what I was operating, they sent the fire department, The fire department came in like, I want to say like 8 or 9 mob deep, They were deep. They came in. And they had knocked on the door and said, hey. They knocked on the door, and I was just like, hey. They come in, and I was like, hey, guys. I was like, hey. And they're like, can we come in? And I was like, sure. So they came in, and they just walked around. And then they walked upstairs. And thank God I had all the equipment, all the electronic gizmos and stuff. Now, the kitchen we had painted black and the floor black. And the stage might have still been there, but everything was gone. So they just left, So I knew then at the time, and I had about 30 scripts myself, and there was other scripts from other producers and other screenwriters I was cool with. Altogether, we probably had about 60 scripts. So I knew that was enough to launch a network. So when the guy that brought me the investor started acting, he called me up and just said something funny style, he was giving me the feeling. Maybe he didn't know he was giving me the feeling this, so I totally forgive him for it. But like he had some type of stake in my company because he had brought me the investor. But I had a deal with him already with one of his intellectual properties that was going to be one of the flagship things on the thing. So I just did it right there because I was like, nah, he's not my boss. And I'm setting a precedence right now. I don't need the money that bad, So, and plus I'm not even doing what I really want to do. Aerospace is always all I ever think about since I was a kid, So, because the thing that's interesting about like the Yeshiva University area is the helicopters that come up and down following the Harlem River coming all the way down. Why? Because they're coming from freaking West Point. They're going from West Point to the United Nations building, back and forth. And sometimes they have these like these black joints, the twin Sikorsky, shiny CIA, NSA, NRO helicopters coming in. Like I've seen 4 or 5 deep, and they move like this, or, so they're coming over to the school. And I don't think most people that go to the school, they really realize, who's flying over, like some dignitaries, from all over the planet. So it's kind of cool. But, so what I started doing is I got an investor earlier on, and I started just I wrote some papers, and I got an investor, and I just started building devices and writing papers and sending off stuff to like different agencies, intelligence agencies for the Department of Defense. And I just kept going and just kept going and just kept going. And I failed and had some successes. And I built a reactor that ran off of, in essence, nothing. What most people call 0-point energy. I don't call it 0-point energy. I call it negentropy DOS because my daughter's name is DOS. So it's like I was so insecure all my life about math. Still am. I'm insecure sometimes. I know you are too. Everybody is. I think like when you go through your life and like you really believe that you're not as good as anybody else, maybe people make you feel that way on purpose, And I think that's what happens with a lot of people with dyslexia and things that people that have special needs or are autistic or some things like that, whatever you want to call it, special needs. And that really helped. I really saw that more from working for the Women's League. Like the doctor that I worked for, like he was just a great guy. He really taught me a lot about like how to deal with people and how to identify they ever have special needs. A lot of human beings have special needs and they're able to get away with it because they're either good looking. They're either good looking or smooth, and they're able to hide their hang-ups, Thank God. But don't front and don't front on somebody with special needs that has some type of they stutter too much, or they shake, or they blink, or they shake their head, or they're just the cadence of their voice is odd. They're almost tone deaf. A lot of people can't hear, so they invade your private space. Just so they can hear more. They don't even they don't even know they're doing it. So learning math was very difficult. Like I got 2 mathematics advisors, 1 PhD atmospheric physicist, mathematics advisor. Let's see, 3 physicists. 3 physicists and a metallurgist and a Kabbalist. You think they wouldn't need a Kabbalist for space-time, for engineering space-time, but the hell you do. You need one of those for sure, just because of the lattices. A lot of the lattices in the tree of life is actually a 5th dimensional image, the tree of life. So you just really throw yourself into it. It's just a surprise to a lot of people because I kind of changed. Like, I was trying to be like a hot comic. I wanted my shit to be good, like hanging out with Dave Chappelle. And like the twice I hang out with Dave Chappelle at 2 of his parties one time at the Comedy Store. And that was like, I've done it, He got to read my script, and I got to hang out with Dave because he's one of the coolest motherfuckers. We're all smoking weed in the back of the Comedy Store, hanging out, laughing, cutting up. Like some of the biggest comics in the world, all in the same room. Tony Hitchcliffe was right there. Me and his girl sitting there chilling. Me and him and his girl sitting there chilling, talking all night the whole time. I'm hanging out with them the whole time, Shouts out to Jasmine. And Aziz Ansari was always really nice too. The math part, like I think it's like when you really decide you're going to go and do something, with your life, and not to say anything. I think what work people have to define. It's up to you to define what work is. Like you have to be able to own that and then realize that there's certain consequences that are going to come with it. So I didn't want to it sounded fucked up. It sounded delusional. Like I could show you my messages and see people, these messages, and see people. Some of them are so mean, some of them are so sweet. But you're delusional, you're sick, you're living on the streets, or you're you sound like you're on a park bench doing cocaine. This one engineer from a lab told me that. And I showed, I had this deal that I had that I was working on, that I was trying to get him into this deal. I didn't need his money. I didn't need his resources or anything like that. I was just like, hey, why don't you join as an advisor on this deal? I'll let the DOD know that you're working with it, and we can do it together. Because I knew at his facility, there's no way he could do it at his facility. Right? It wasn't secure enough. But that's what he said. He's like, it sounds like you're on a park bench doing cocaine, which is pretty funny because I love sleeping on park benches. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world. Listen, sleeping on park benches is so underrated. It's just great stuff. It's so comfortable, I am comfortable anywhere I want to go. Now, was I on a park bench? No, at the time. I was in the front of a computer working right now. I'm just thinking, and I'm just like, and then I showed one of my rabbis that knows this guy, and he's just like, Jared, you have been so kind to that guy. And if it's like, he's missing out on a huge opportunity. Don't try anymore with this guy, So, and this guy didn't know that for years I kept working. I think some of the people that I reached out to first thought that I had stopped. This one guy thought that I had jumped off a bridge, or some shit like that. So just keep doing math, and just keep understanding. And the people that you're learning from, like if they're engineers or they're physicists, or astrophysics, what you name it, type of physicists, study them and get to know their life. Like most people don't most people don't understand Albert Einstein's life. What made him good, It wasn't that he was a super genius, man. He's smarter than all of us, man. You got to understand. Like Albert Einstein's coin, the one off of my thing, off of my Instagram page, my Instagram page, and it's also on my Facebook page. That coin is at Yeshiva University's library. I would sit in front of that coin and just stare at it. Because my house was on the other side of the wall. So if I walked through my room, and if I could walk through walls, I could walk right in and come in right behind his gold coin. So it's like, I always want to touch it because I believe in quantum energy. If you touch anything, like you touch this pen, all right, this pen right there has, your quantum energy in it, and it never really goes away. So understanding that, first off, probably one of the most fucked up things is them cutting open Albert Einstein's brain. What were they thinking that they were going to find? An extra brain in there or something like that. Of course, back then, we were so almost like cavemen back then. But then you get into the realm of eugenics, where you think that like Jews are genetically superior because they're smarter or something like that. Or it's almost like black people are stronger, or white people are strong, or Asian guys have small penises, or white guys have small penises, and black guys have these huge penises, So it's just all these things that we buy into that are eugenic based, and eugenics is probably one of the most evil things on the planet, because you can't attach any type of you can't attach emotional or intellectual growth through genetics. It just doesn't. That's not the way it works. There's some characteristics that come through with muscle mass and things of that nature, but that can be carried on like that, but not intellect. It just doesn't work that way. And at least I don't think that worked that way, and I could produce proof. I know that other people can try to produce proof. I think neo-Nazis try to do this thing all the time. I think closet white supremacists do that. Do I think a lot of Jews believe that? I think a lot of Jews and Muslims and Christians do believe in somewhat of a eugenics. I believe that they think they're somehow better than somebody else. And I think that that's where I came up with this, where I was able to move at little bit speeds, move at speeds and figure out things other people couldn't figure out, because I stopped looking at people. Here's what it is. When people think that you're dead, or that you're on a or that you're in a corner in an alley with newspaper over your sleep, when they think that you're that way, you actually get to understand the true nature of human beings. Like, there's nothing better than to hear pure honesty out of somebody. Like, at least this motherfucker is being honest, man, with how he feels about the world and me. I'll just keep it moving this way, So I couldn't really tell anybody for years. I couldn't tell them when I was working on it. I couldn't, so the equation kind of happened by accident. And it happened because I had to come up with the first order analysis of something, and to learn about what the first order analysis mean, I had to learn linear equations. And I was just like, oh, fuck no. There's no way. I'm talking about, there's no way I can do this shit, but I just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. So then we get into smart versus stupid, all right? Self-proclaimed stupid guy. Stupid guy right here. Stupid. Be stupid, right? Stupid, mad stupid, right? Cute, but stupid. But I think it's like, what I realized is when I was in school and when I was in college, especially in LA Film School, and I altered a lot of physics classes. Like, I have to give myself credit on this one. I didn't just come up with this shit. Like, I had a lot of help. I edited my first physics class at Georgia Tech with astrophysicist professor, I think she's astrophysicist, Deidre Shoemaker. I haven't seen her since, but that was the first class that I audited. I just sat down and she let me sit in on the class. She said I can come back anytime. She's a very, very kind person. So I ended up, I noticed that in class that most people don't want to ask questions. For instance, like if you got your little think tank over here, you're like a crew, like 4 or 5 guys or 3 or 4 girls. They're all hanging out, drinking coffee together, going out partying, smoking weed together, and they're hanging out and they're friends for life, right? So they've got a think tank together. They all do their homework together. They share answers. They're able to text each other and stuff, answers and stuff like that. So their mentality is, let's get through class as easy as we can. Don't ask too many questions, I'm different. I love to ask questions. You can ask questions sometimes and the teacher doesn't know the questions, and then you're gonna be split. You're gonna be like, well, the teacher's gonna be like, well, either they like you or they don't. It depends on how curious they are. And me, myself, certain things didn't set right with me. I knew the laws of thermodynamics were wrong. And I knew that Albert Einstein's equation was wrong. And before I get into that, I want to get into levels of consciousness. Because this is how you interact with people. For instance, like even for instance, like today, me sending out messages. I probably sent out about 200, maybe 300 different messages. Some people I haven't messaged in years since I was back in film school, right? So I send them this equation. I'm like, yo, I broke out Albert Einstein's equation, blah, 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 blah. Here's how I did it. And I talked about levels of consciousness, things like that. So what I saw was hilarious because people either respond, people think that, one, you're crazy, one, you're sick, or anything. So automatically they're thinking that they're better than you. And that's the way it goes. For instance, when you're walking down the street and you see like some type of dilapidated bum, like laying in the corner of the street beside a building, laying in urine, right? You think that we're brainwashed to think that somehow we're better than them, that they don't have a dime on them. They lose my respect, So when you start ejecting that, you start walking around, and everybody you walk by, you stop and you feel their energy as you walk by, and you understand that everybody's an infinite being. Everybody has a soul that has been reincarnated over and over and over again, and they don't even know that this all is a hologram. This is a simulation. Like Susskind, like Professor Susskind and Stephen Hawking's prove is, just look it up. It's called the holographic principle. Space-time, right? Space-time. What's in my hand right here? In the middle of my hand? This is space-time, right? Space-time. Space-time is a hologram. So once you understand that, you're able to understand like what frustrates human beings, why people fight, why there's wars, why there's sexism, why there's addiction. Like it's really, you look at things from a little bit more of a deeper perspective, and everybody can do it. But a lot of people are afraid to do it because they don't want to be judged. They don't want their community to be judged. And I'm going to tell you, that's one thing. the bullshit idea of community. Like, we buy into this thing called community so much, like we think that we have our community. Community is actually the most fucked up thing if possible, because you're separating yourself. What you're doing is you're entering a community where you can talk smack about some other community, whether this community is the Democratic community, this community is the Republican community. This is the comedy community. You can get into your little comedy crew, your little comedians that you all respect each other. They've all got their respect, right? So, but they all can talk smack about everybody else. So look how many Facebook groups that that person have. Well, most person has 20, 30 different groups, right? So each group, you've got your little friends that you feel secure about, that you all can talk smack. You all can talk about your hobbies, but the hobby is what brings you together. You're really not friends. I mean, it can develop into a friendship, but I've learned that the idea of community, it really tears the world apart, because most people don't understand that they're a part of the world community. They don't understand that. But that's because we're split up between 195 different countries and all these different languages and religions, where we are the product of a highly advanced form of psychological warfare that's meant to separate human beings to keep us enslaved. And once you realize that, you're able to not just be more confident, but you're just more conscious of your thoughts, to understand that your thoughts are not private, that you understand that your words mean something, and you understand that you don't really want to see you don't want to see yourself, you don't want to send other people, you don't want to see other people suffer. And so that's the level of consciousness. As far as like Einstein's equation being wrong, to Einstein's defense, he was dyslexic. So the equation is backwards. So it shouldn't be E equals 2 MCs. It should be, because E doesn't, the equal sign is in the wrong place. Energy doesn't equal anything. Like energy is everything. This right here, this right here, this is matter, right? Matter, right? Matter, this is condensed energy, right? This is the same thing that is inside that light right there. What you see is pure energy, almost like where's energy coming from a direct short in the filament. But matter, space-time or matter, this is condensed energy. So what I was able to do is figure out that the tensor calculus system that Einstein wrote the equation in is fundamentally flawed, because the tensor calculus system can only put an infinite amount of coordinates inside of free space. So let's say the inside of this duct tape is free space, right? So if the tensor calculus system could put an infinite amount of coordinates inside of free space, but there's no calculation system to calculate all of outside of free space everywhere. There's not an equation for all that. So I realized that that's wrong, and then Albert wrote the equation wrong because it's only taking up energy and mass. So it's actually two-dimensional, damn near one-dimensional, in a three-dimensional matrix, in a three-dimensional equation. So it's an infinite equation written in an infinitesimal or an infinite equation system, contradicting terms. And if you look at the wall socket, what do you see? You see a positive and you see a negative when you plug a plug in, right? So when you realize that our technology right now is based off of Albert Einstein's equation, all of it, right? So you would say that the way that Albert Einstein was worshipped, they cut open his brain. Oh my God, he didn't even want them to do that, But at the end of his career, I believe that he found out that he was wrong, but the government didn't let him come out and fix it. So it's almost as if he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He was such a good person, man. Everything I've read about him, he wasn't a racist, man. It's easy for Jews, especially Ashkenazic Jews, well, Sephardic Jews as well, to buy into racism, to fit into communities, because with Jews, we're treated as if we're smarter by other people that aren't Jewish. If I had that Jewish brain, or you guys are so smart, or so many lawyers and doctors. No, you can learn how to be. Anybody can be Jewish. They wouldn't convert me until I thought like a Jew. So it's something that could be. Did that help? Did that help with the equation? I suppose so. I'm a lot more analytical. I don't think there's anything wrong with anybody being analytical. If you're very analytical, most human beings are, and it's something that calls in the back of your head because you're constantly trying to process information. I think it could even come from the soul, and the unconscious mind. That's about it. I'm trying to think what else. As far as like getting the equation like verified and stuff like that, I already had some pretty good people look at it and be like, yo, like their eyes, like I showed a professor the other day and he looked down at it and he looked back up and he was like, what's up with the 60? And I explained to him, I was like, basically what I did is I took the tensor calculus system, which is a 3D tensor calculus system, right? I took it and I upgraded it to a 5D tensor calculus system so it could calculate 5 dimensions. But I realized that wasn't good enough. I wanted to get the more accurate, more of an accurate calculating system. So I went the base 60 or the Sumerian mathematical system, which is like using your knuckles. So you count as base 60 or 12. So you're counting in increments of 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. What was it? 12, 60, right? 5 times 12, 60. Whereas you go, if you count 10 by 60, you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We go 10, 10, 10. It's faster. It's a faster calculating system. So I merged the tensor calculus system with the sexagesimal mathematics system and came up with an infinitesimal, a sexagesimal infinitesimal mathematics system, which is pretty weird because I'm so bad at math that I came up with a fucking new level of mathematics. One of my friends called it hypergeometry is what it is. I call it the sexy equation because, what else? As far as getting it, I got to write another. See, I did this paper, but I did this by accident. I didn't like set out to beat the equation and come up with like the equation. Like, cause this equation can solve any problem. Like, you don't even understand, like anything can be solved mathematically. Everything you see around us is a mathematical code. Like you see how my hand is going against this banner behind me. Well, it's my hand's blocking the photons here. Well, that shadow is being cast from here. It's a calculation system because the space-time itself is a dimension of almost like a torsion field. That's exactly what I liken it to. I would liken it to some type of torsion field that is all around us. Yeah. And what's next? There's a few schools that I've been that are interested, of course, and just for me to just keep going. I like doing builds, and I like building. I like building my designs. Writing papers is fun. I'm not looking forward to write a paper on this freaking theory. I'm not looking forward to getting it peer reviewed. I'm not, because typically my papers can't be peer reviewed because it's some classified shit, man. So how I come into peer review with some hot shit, especially with some people that are, from my perspective, I find the peer review system to be very flawed. I think it's gatekeepers. And I think if somebody comes with something, I think that they have people put in place to hold people back sometimes. Paranoia? Why not, But if I have to do it, I have it peer reviewed. But I've already, the confidence that I have now is because one of my advisors saw it. And when he saw it, he was like, he told me, he says, yes. He says, you realize what this is? I was like, I know what it is. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even warn him before I saw him, So I think it was a lot of fun. It is fun. Now, it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's also a lot of sadness in it. Just because it's like, you look at human beings and you wonder how they were able to. Do you really believe that the human race is going to survive? Like, do you really believe? Yeah. And I think that's like, it's a difficult thing looking at humanity and then seeing like so many great people. Like I'm surrounded by nothing but great people. But just like the amount of opportunities that people miss, man, like just the amount of talent, if people understood how beautiful they were, how talented they are, how well they can play the flute, how well they can play the saxophone, how well they can sing, how well they... It's really sad if you think about it, you know. But if I can do it, anybody can. And I'm gonna hold this video right at 31 minutes, because I think I said everything I needed to say. And yeah, I love you guys. I'm glad I can share this with you guys. I'm glad to have written that equation and like learn mathematics, because I jumped over trigonometry, jumped over geometry, jumped over a few, and just jumped right into tensor calculus and then figure out it was messed up. It's really fucked up if you think about it. Oh man, I was like, sometimes I cried in the shower for an hour the other day. I think it was Thursday before I went into work, because I was like, man, I wish I would have done it, because I saw the effect that it had on people, that some of the PhDs that like, they just really buy into the exclusiveness of their community. Like I have no degree in engineering, no degree in physics. I've taken a lot of physics classes, and I've had to study a lot of engineering books, a lot of engineering diagrams. Gabriel Krohn, Thomas Bearden, Dr. Salvador Payas from the Space Force, and I read their papers and made sure I read it like it was a freaking Torah, man, and tore it apart. And realize that all these people are talking smack about them because these guys are onto something, you know. I think like, I just want to thank you guys, like for the people, not to, you know, for the people even that don't believe this, or even if they're whatever, I don't really care. I don't have nothing to, listen, I'll debate somebody. I'll debate whoever, you know. What's his name? The guy that debated Howard. The Terrence Howard, Eric Weinstein or whatever, like, I would debate Eric Weinstein, but I'm gonna tell you something, Eric, come with your A game, baby, because the whole thing about, well, my community doesn't speak that way, fuck your community, bro. Like, I don't, dude, fuck all communities, man. Like, I didn't do this to fit into a community. I'm not gonna fit into a community anywhere I go, you know. I'm not totally fit in. I have a handful of friends, and the rest of the other smart people that aren't doing anything with their lives, that are mediocre in their fields, they're doing things just to fit in their community. Now, Eric, I'm not dissing you. I think that you're actually a pretty nice guy. And also I like the way that you and Terrence debated. But I'll debate Terrence too. I've even said on YouTube once in a message, some people were taking shits on if you look, there's a really high physicist that posts videos on YouTube. She's PhD. And she was talking about Terrence Howard saying 1 + 1 = or 1 × 1 = 3 or whatever. And everybody was, you know, taking shits on Terrence Howard in this video. And I was like, you guys like are so arrogant because you really buy into empirical observation, thinking that it's just the end all be all. And like, how can you say that, you know, 100% of Terrence's stuff is wrong? Like, why would you say any human being is 100% wrong? If he's written 90 patents, 30 patents, 60 patents, and has written papers and is speaking, all of his shit's wrong? Come on, man. Like, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's like, it's very difficult, man. So it's like, I would debate both Terrence and Eric at the same time. And I would come in with the guns cocked too. Like, I would make sure, listen, I'm not going to go into a debate I can lose. There was a guy the other day that said he wanted to debate me, and I was like, call my investor. He said, Jared, I'll put up any amount of money to debate you. I mean, for you to debate. So I hit him back. I was like, tell him I'll debate him for $10 million in the MTA auditorium at Yeshiva University's MTA auditorium. I'll debate him for $10 million. Get his investor to put $10 million up, and I'm gonna take your money, nigga. Like, for real, I'm gonna take your money. Why? And I have to work on this. Levels of consciousness, right? I want to embarrass you. I want to make it where you're not working in your field anymore because I drug you through the mud, and I have no degrees at all, and you're a PhD. $10 million, I'll do that shit. No, then I kept, and then he said, no, he can't come up with $10 million. I'll tell you what, I'll debate you for $100 million. And he folded, bruh. I hadn't heard nothing from him. He hasn't came to congratulate me. He had never read any of my papers, took shits on every one of the engineers, Thomas Bearden, Gabriel Crone, Pace. A lot of these really high up, a lot of these really fancy guys that with these degrees, all they do is take shits on everybody else and call everything else pseudoscience because they believe in empirical observation, right? It's really silly if you think about it, you know, but you can't let it get to you. And because that's going to just lower your consciousness. If you're angry, if you feel hurt, you know, like I'm sensitive. I don't mind being hurt, man. I mean, I get my feelings hurt all the time. It happens. I would like to think it happens less and less, but it comes from unexpected places. Sometimes it comes from people that really love you, man. You know, your best friend might do it. I have a best friend. Sometimes my best friend hurts my feelings. Sometimes he usually doesn't, but sometimes he has. You can't hate people just because they hurt your feelings, man. Maybe they try to hurt your dreams. Sometimes people don't understand your dreams. But you just want to keep working, man. And that's why I made this video. And I'm glad that you guys can watch it. And I hope that you guys can take the equation, use it yourselves and try it. You'll hear about it, be in the news and things like that. You guys take care. Thank you.